All right, welcome everybody to our second part or first part for people who are joining us today of our book study on understanding the affordable housing crisis. I'm Alvin with Kheprw Institute. I'm glad you could join us today. Today we're talking about Evicted by Matthew Desmond, and we are going to start with just some quick intros on getting to know who's in the room. So we have a little tradition where we talk about how we're feeling 1 to 10. If today were a color, what color would it be in terms of how you're feeling? And then the last check-in question today is going to be something prepared by someone that you love that's like one of your favorites. So my mom's blank, or my friend makes this awesome dish. So, and I can start us off. So I am feeling like a 9 because I have just got back from doing a little workout. So I've tried to build into my schedule in the afternoon to do a quick break, which I feel like has really been helpful for feeling refreshed and able to like tackle the rest of the day. So I'm feeling great. And color today would be an electric yellow and something that someone I love makes. Okay, so today I'm going to say the tres leches cake that Aguila makes. So Aguila also is with Kheprw, but she makes this really awesome tres leches cake that's super moist and delicious. If you haven't had it, it's like 3 milk cake, and it's got like cream and is kind of soggy, milky, sweet. It's delicious. And I will pass it over to Miss Pambana.
Hi, everyone. So I am Sunlight White. 8. The sunshine is disappearing and I don't see a lot of spots of blue sky. And I guess I'll say recently Mystery, who's like my daughter-in-law, she made this like pineapple upside down cake that was really good. And then she has her own catering business, so she has this really good food that she cooks. So I'll say her pineapple upside down cake, and I will pass it to Josie.
Thanks, Pambana. Oh, am I audible? No.
Yeah, we hear you great.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm at like a 4, but now I'm at a 5 as of this meeting. And I feel like burnt orange and oh man, I ran through like 6 things that my friends make. Oh, my friend Kim is putting on a talent show, which I'm super excited to go to, and it's in like 3 months, but I'm like counting it down because a bunch of people are going to share their talents, and I've always wanted to put on a talent show, but this is even better because I don't even have to do it. I can just go to hers, so that's exciting. Yeah, and I don't know who to pass it to because I am on my phone, so I can only see Alvin right now.
No
but like
problem.
I'll pass it to anybody.
We'll kick it to Alicia, or Nate's unmuted. You can go next.
Nate? Was that to me, Alvin? Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Nate Howard. I work with the Muncie Land Bank. I also teach a little bit at Ball State. I am probably probably an 8. More than anything, I got a good night's rest last night, and which is not always the case, but so I feel pretty good. I would say, I don't know, I'm maybe a light green today, maybe because spring is coming. And my mother makes a breakfast souffle that I always get really excited when she makes, which is kind of for almost all of our holiday activities as a family. She makes it. And it's sausage, egg, cheese, everything I like. That's not good for you.
And the souffle, that's the one that's like puffy and shrinks down really easy.
It's kind of like it's got a bunch of bread in it, and she lets it soak overnight, yolk and cheese and the bacon, everything layered, and then puts it in the oven in the morning, and then kind of cooks in oil rice cornflakes and then puts it over the top.
Sounds delicious.
It's very good. Nice to meet everyone.
Okay, so I'll jump in. It's Alicia.
Sorry, yes.
So it's okay. It's okay. I'm actually here with Pastor Victoria Mormon, and she's driving, but she hears everything that's going on. So I want her to do hers first, and then I'll follow up after her. So right now the question is, if you were color today, Pastor Mormon, what would your color be?
My color would actually be royal blue, and
Your number?
my number is right now is a 9.
And what do you miss in somebody's cookie?
And far as
Building.
cooking or building, it's my mom's cheesecake. She made the best cheesecake. I mean, oh my gosh! And people have tried to duplicate it. She's had people try to find the recipe, and they're like, "I've done it the way she's done it." And the closest that can almost taste like my mom is the Sara Lee cheesecake that's in the freezer. It's closest, but it's not like. But my mom had the best stuff. She would have bakers try to get what my mom had and stuff like that. So, and I just can't find it. I can't duplicate it. But I'm super glad to be here and with you guys. Thank you, Alvin. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, everybody. That was Pastor Victoria Mormon, the CEO of A Safe House Corporation, and she's also the CEO of Living God's Grace Ministry. So we're glad to have her as a part of our team. My name's Alicia Bell. I'm the executive director of A Safe House Corporation. So we are a emergency housing agency for the ages of 0 through 18 here in Marion County. That we are doing advanced mental health programming and social welfare programming. If today was a color for me, I would be brown. It's just, I feel very rooted today. Just very healthy, anticipating things to come. We have a lot of things set up within, personal life, the organization. I just bought my first house. I'm buying my first house. So
Yes.
I just got the documentation signed through the notary. So I'm super excited about that. And if today was a number, I would be probably like a 6. And that is because I'm so overwhelmed and overloaded. I just feel like I need to take a rest, but it's so much good stuff. I feel like I can't slow down. So I feel like there's room for growth, and I'm glad to be here today. So with good news, there's always bad news, of course. And I had bad news this morning, followed by good news from signing my first house payment. And then now being on here with you guys, I feel totally fulfilled. So feeling better. And if there was something that I could have that somebody else was making or building, it would probably be my great auntie, Louise, God rest her soul. She used to buy these little strudel things. And I cannot figure, it's kind of like an alligator cake, but it wasn't an alligator cake. It was kind of like had nuts and berries in it. And it was a strudel. And I've never been able to get that ever again. And I think it went out with like Roslyn Bakery, maybe one of their old school strudels. So still to this day, I'm craving, ready to taste every strudel or tart until I replicate that flavor. So that's who I am. And I'm glad to be here with you all today. Thank you. And I think TJ was on.
Yeah, I'm here.
Did you already go? You already went, TJ.
Not
Sorry
yet.
about that. Did you already go?
Not yet. I can go now.
Okay, thanks, TJ.
Yeah, for sure. What's up, everybody? My name is TJ Hellman. I'm a graphic designer and web developer, and excited to join this group. Probably number-wise, I'd probably be in a 5 or 6. Color, I think I'd be green today. I'm looking forward to more green outside as spring comes. And food that came to mind was my partner makes a really good like berry pie, especially as the berries come out in the summertime and stuff. So that's the first thing kind of came to mind for me. And I think that's all of us, right?
Yep. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. So thanks everyone for joining. So I'm actually just going to try something a little different. Sorry, I accidentally muted myself. Thanks everyone for joining us. So I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to put like a bunch of questions in the chat. which are just kind of discussion questions about the book. So I'll give everyone like 30 seconds, a minute just to read through them. And if you at that time want to just jump in and like if any ones that like strike you that you want to start off with, then we can go from there. Hey, Jeanette, how's it going?
Oh, I've had better days.
Oh, you doing all right?
Yeah, I'm okay. I little damage to my car, but somebody rear-ended me on my way home from church today.
Oh, no.
So I'm waiting for the policeman to show up to take a report. And it got better. So they rear-ended me. And then when I started to get out, they said, let's pull over to the side so we can get out of traffic. And as soon as I pulled over, she took off.
Ooh. All right. Well,
So
hopefully
I'm like,
it's all up from here.
yeah, really.
And we actually just did our check-in. So if you like to check in, we have just giving what you're feeling 1 to 10 today, color for today, and then something that someone you love makes that you really love, like a food or a dish or a meal.
Well, probably only at a 5, because I've had a few good things happen today, but something that someone I was introduced to real cranberry sauce by my mother-in-law. How's that? I'd never had it growing up, and I really like it.
Awesome. And Jeanette, we also are we're kind of reading over the discussion questions. I put them in the chat. And then after like 30 seconds or so, we're going to just kick it off with whatever questions people want to start with.
Okay.
Alvin, how much time are you giving us for the questions, or are we just taking them one by one? Or
So we are maybe, and if people are ready to go, someone wants to kick it off with one of them. So we're kind of just whatever people are feeling from those questions. If there's any that strike you that you want to start out with. And Alicia, you're muted. You're talking.
oh, sorry. Yeah, I did unmute myself again. So I believe that question 2 is definitely for me. I believe that let me go back to the question. I know you can still see me, but I'm trying to keep you on.
Yeah, you're good. You want to, and I can read that for everyone. In the book, Desmond argues that eviction is not just a consequence of poverty, but a cause of it. What did you think about this argument? Do you agree, disagree?
So it's truth. It's truth in it, but it's not total truth, because eviction is only one of the exacerbated issues that's leading to poverty. So it plays a significant role in it, but there's a lot more. We also have to look into financial information, education, structuring, accountability. There's other things that go along with Desmond's thoughts about poverty and what incites it. I believe that this is one key factor because of so much control being within the landlord's control. And then also I want to look at nothing listen to how we operate as a human, as a people. Nothing in law states that we have to charge people every freaking month for rent. Nothing. But here we are trying to capitalize even off of people that can't even afford to pay that money. Why are we not taking their income and spreading it out less sparingly, like for 6 months or for 8 months, and then taking a per diem, which is 0.25% more of the total rent, and adding that on per month to kind of balance out the need of housing, so we can get rid of evictions. You see what I'm saying? Why is there not a company that oversees these type of programs for the people that are minority? So again, I want to iterate that this is one issue of poverty. It's one out of the handbasket. So we can't just focus on one, as Desmond suggests. We have to look at all the other broader issues. And I believe that eviction is one of them. It's definitely one that keeps them in a stagnant place. They can't elevate because of the stigma that's placed on, that background once they do get an eviction. And I think that also, again, there's a lot of reasons, Alvin.
I would say that to some degree, I agree that evictions contribute to poverty, but to me, it's just an aspect of the greater, I guess I would say, capitalistic system. First of all, for me, it's like, if you don't have money, you can't even get a place to live. So unfortunately, the way our system is structured, and maybe that's around the world, is that if you don't have money, you don't have a roof over your head. And then if you have money, I had parents and they both ended up going back to school and, getting training so that they can improve their income, but they worked very hard. My dad worked as a janitor, my mom worked at fast food, and they still didn't make enough money working 40 hours a week to be able to cover a lot of the expenses. So to me, therein is the problem too, that we don't value everybody's labor equally, I guess you would say, or to the point where at least it's a living wage. So for me, the issue of poverty is systemic in the context of capitalism, how it's structured, what we pay people, that you have to have money to have a roof over your head. And if you don't, then these are the consequences of it. Like you can get evicted, and then because you got these marks on your record, then you can't find another place. And then you end up taking living in places that are degraded and feeling like you can't report the landlord. So to me, it's a larger issue as it relates to capitalism. And I would say capitalism causes poverty.
Anyone want to add on that?
Just that's really convicting thought that capitalism causes poverty. I don't disagree with it, but I never thought of it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would just add in to this, and this is I think kind of portrayed in the Evicted in terms of the way that they tell the stories, particularly about how the landlords. So in the book, there's a landlord, at least particularly two landlords who are portrayed, and how they extract wealth and money from the folks who have the least, because they don't have as many choices and really have to kind of put up with whatever situations and whatever's demanded of them in terms of the rent. But also the people who are then making money off those landlords are the banks. And then the people who are making money off the banks are the people who have wealth. So it's not disconnected, and it's not just a few bad apples extracting and preying on poor people, but really it's a larger system that uses real estate as a financial asset that then's used to exploit people and extract money from people who don't have choices. And I think if you go even deeper, and I do want to touch more on the role of race too, and the history of race, and really a racial caste system that has historic roots in kind of the founding of not just America, but kind of the modern worlds of Western modern global economy. There's a book that we're reading now too, a couple of us in Kheprw, called Born in Blackness, which really explores the foundation of the wealth and labor of Africa. And it's particularly the rise of Europe is based off of that, and a plantation economy that was created from the slave trade and colonialism and the development of the new world, quote unquote new world. And I definitely can, it's really detailed, and also helps to identify the through lines between that colonial plantation economy to then like share, well, we haven't got to this part of the book, but I could see the lines between that and sharecropping, and then who owns the land and properties, being able to basically extract the labor and exploit the labor of, particularly along racial lines, but not just racial lines, because clearly in the book there's also folks who are not Black or not, and white people who also are being exploited too by the system. But I would say fundamentally, though, the system is based off of kind of a racial caste system, but not exclusively racial. Anyone want to add in, particularly how the book, or even just thoughts on the impact of race on the stories of the people and on housing, and etc.
Well, I didn't read the book. So I'm kind of here to listen. I'm working with the land bank, so I don't know if everybody is familiar with what a land bank is, but we try to help with the issue of abandoned property. And for me, it's been, I left Muncie for 20 some years and just recently come back and found myself in this role. So I've been learning about the place where I grew up. Which I think everybody probably is already aware of, but you really can't talk about the issue of housing, vacancy, neighborhood vibrancy without talking about race and how, there's been systemic issues, policies that have lent themselves to what's going on today. I know here in Muncie, for example, there are still neighborhoods that have they're called covenants, that are kind of the norms of neighborhoods, that where people of color are not supposed to be able to purchase property. And the two historically African-American neighborhoods in Muncie are the two neighborhoods have the highest amount of vacancy and abandoned property. There are other factors. The whole south side of Muncie was where all the industry was, and had it up and left in the 90s and thereafter. But yeah, for me, it's become a primary issue with trying to understand the issue of abandoned property or vacancy, and then thinking about the land bank as potentially a mechanism that could be used for equity, even if it's a small little piece of the pie, but there's an opportunity to use it for some kind of equity in a place where there's a long history of a lack of equity, racial equity, amongst other things. But that's about all I'm going to say. I'm going to listen.
Awesome, and welcome. We have a new person, Lisa, who just joined us. So Lisa, we were doing intros earlier. Would you like to introduce yourself? Maybe how you heard about the discussion, and we were also saying how you're feeling 1 to 10. If today were a color, what color would it be? And a dish by someone that you love, like a family member, a friend that is like awesome that you love. So like my mom's blank or something.
Oh goodness, let me see. You're gonna have to repeat some of that because you was talking really fast. But anyway, my name is Lisa Harvey, and I am director of crime prevention with the Lawrence Police Department in Indianapolis. And I heard about it through an email that I received from the mayor's office. He's a mayor's advocate, sends out a lot of emails of educational information and things like that. So that's how I heard it. And what else did you ask? I'm sorry.
So a dish by someone that you love that you want to share with everybody.
A dish?
Yeah, like a meal. Okay, like my mom's apple pie or.
Oh, wow. Let me see. I don't know. Let me see. My mom's dish, what, like lasagna? her homemade lasagna. I think, yeah.
Nice. Thanks for joining us, Lisa.
Thank you.
Okay, so, and Nate, having reminded me that he hadn't read the book, I forgot. I was going to show a short video that we can use also for discussion. So it's like about 5 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we can also discuss the video too. Okay. Let's see. Hear that?
Poverty is talked about as something about jobs or welfare, the family or the criminal justice system. And all those things are very, very important, but there's something missing, and that's housing. The American public and its policymakers long have thought that families should spend about 30% of their income on housing costs. If you look at the past 15 years, median asking rent has increased over 70% adjusting for inflation. It's an incredibly historic rise. You've seen a rise of poor renters spending more of their income on housing costs, to the point that today, only about 18% of poor renters spend 30% or less on their housing costs. The majority of renters below the poverty line are extremely rent burdened. I wanted to study the causes and consequences of eviction in the city, because I thought eviction was this lens or this prism through which you can understand broader things about poverty and housing in America today. Now, I chose Milwaukee because Milwaukee stands in for a lot of American cities. It stands in for Pittsburgh and Cleveland and Indianapolis and St. Louis, and it's a story not just about what's happened to the biggest city in Wisconsin, but it's a story about what's happened to the Rust Belt and cities all across Middle America. So in an average year in Milwaukee, about 16,000 people are evicted. It's about 45 people evicted every day in the city. That means about 1 out of 30 renter-occupied households is evicted every year in the city. And if you look just at the inner city, the poorest neighborhoods, that ratio jumps to 1 in 14. Eviction's an incredibly common experience in the lives of the urban poor. Most evictions are because you don't pay your rent. But you can also get evicted for criminal activity or alleged criminal activity and other kinds of ways of breaking the lease. You know, you damage the property, or people are living with you that the landlord doesn't know about. So there's 101 ways to evict a family. You can give them money to move. You can just simply tell them to move. I met a landlord that takes off your door. So imagine you're living in the worst part of your city and you don't have a front door. So there's all sorts of informal ways to evict a tenant too. If you go the formal route, you go to civil court and you bring a suit against the tenant. And a lot of people don't expect the eviction. And I know that sounds a little hard to believe when you're behind 2 or 3 months on rent. But sometimes people think they can work something out with the landlord or have their day in court. And sometimes, yes, they're 2 or 3 months behind on rent, but their toilet often doesn't work or the heat's been broken. And so they think they have an argument in court. In some cities, those are arguments. But in most cities in the country, if you're behind in rent, it really doesn't matter the condition of the housing. Now, most tenants that are served an eviction notice and summoned to court don't show up. So about 80% of tenants in Milwaukee that have a court date never show up to that court date, and they lose by default. Those who do show up usually don't show up with a lawyer. So in civil court, you have no rights to a lawyer like you do in criminal courts. In many cities, 90% of landlords have an attorney and 90% of tenants don't. If you're facing homelessness because you fell behind in rent for whatever reason, you have to usually face the judge alone. So if you walk into Milwaukee eviction court, you're going to see a lot of African-American women with children. And that's going to be the same in the New York City eviction court and a lot of eviction courts across the country. Women in majority black neighborhoods are evicted at over twice the rate as men are in those neighborhoods. So one way you can think about that is in very poor, segregated neighborhoods, black men are getting locked up in the criminal justice system and black women are getting locked out, getting thrown out from eviction. One thing that happens when you get evicted through the court is you get an eviction record. It goes on your record. And in Milwaukee and a lot of other cities across the country, your record is online, free for everyone to see. And a lot of landlords that I met, they just refuse to take anyone with a recent eviction. So landlords have the saying, we'll take you as long as you don't have an eviction or a conviction. And so what that does is if you have an eviction record, it really forces you to the bottom of the housing market. You move into worse housing and into worse neighborhoods. I think most Americans, if you'd ask them where do most low-income families live, they'd say public housing, or they benefit from some sort of housing voucher. But it's actually the opposite is true. About 45 million people in America are below the poverty line today. So only 1 in 4 low-income Americans that qualify for housing assistance receive anything from the federal government. That counts vouchers, that counts housing assistance, that counts public housing, all of that bundled up. Only 1 in 4 receive that. 3 out of 4 receive absolutely no assistance and have to make ends meet in the private market unassisted. A lot of times when we think about housing policy, we think of the lucky minority that do receive it. But we need a housing policy that matters for everyone else. And public housing does that. Whatever the falls public housing had, one thing it did was to keep rents lower for everyone else on the market. Housing is a direct cause of poverty in America today. It's not just about how little money people are making, it's about how much they are giving to live in some of the worst housing in the worst neighborhoods in America.
Okay, and one other thing I wanted to share is that if you haven't heard about it, there's a website called Eviction Lab that Matthew Desmond helped start, where they look at eviction statistics around the country and cities around the country. And one of those statistics is like an eviction, what is it? The eviction ranking that I think if you look at total evictions, and this is from 2016 data, so things have changed probably, but for that year, Indianapolis, in terms of the total number of evictions in the whole country, was second behind New York City. So it's definitely a huge, big issue. Like he said, Milwaukee, Indianapolis, cities around the country. And I'll just open it up for thoughts, reactions.
Semi-true. But I mean, a lot of the things that's happening, that's taking place is because of the rate of how much the property is and stuff like that that's going on. Even before the hike, we have gotten to. I'm sorry, I'm trying to watch this traffic.
Yeah, she's talking.
Okay, I'm going to stop. Oh gosh,
It's okay.
But anyway, it's having to turn around and people coming in, and the landlord is seeing where they can benefit more and to keep the poverty level low. You already know that you got someone in your home, that you gave them the opportunity to be there, but you got them at a point where you already know that they fill out the application, they apply for your home, and yet you know it's just like you keep them in this circle, in this hamster wheel, where you know that as long as they pay your rent, pay the rent and pay the rent, pay the rent and stuff like that. And just have just enough for the utilities, that they'll never go anywhere else because their everything is limited. And so that way they keep them in the hamster wheel. And instead of saying, okay, you know what, okay, you may qualify for this or something, but they want you, but sometimes you got some people are so to the point, all they looking out, the landlord is looking out for what they got coming in, who they can rent to, like right now, because they need ready access to, and who can get moved in, and not who can stay. And so we got that's also another outlook that we need to look at too. That sometimes everybody's not on the up and up. It's like, okay, you got money right now to move in and stuff like that, but can you keep that?
Right. There's
force?
no right.
Get that. So
no evaluation.
Exactly. So it's accountability on both parts.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of sometimes some people like, well, nobody's going to rent to me right now, but this person is giving me the opportunity. And so, yes, you may have money at tax time. You have money before the end of the year and stuff like that, by before Christmas or whatever, stuff like that. And people also got to get out of the rat race of knowing that some of these pagan holidays and stuff, you just can't turn around and just pour into certain things and know how to adjust things and how to adjust life. So a lot of it goes on to behalf of both parts of the tenant and as well the landlord.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to reiterate and jump off of what Pastor Mormon is saying, is that you know, it's okay to give free stuff, but there comes a point to where free is not always conducive to elevation or success, and it produces more stagnation. So we have to look at and weigh exactly how much are we giving away for free? What is the plan to implement so they don't always expect free? And then have a plan for people who, what's the plan? Because we can put them in these sustainable housings, But if they're trying to elevate and truly change their lives, how can they keep the housing once they start to elevate? That's something that I'm trying to figure out myself now. Like, we would put them in a house and we say that they can't be above this much income.
And 30 days
And 30
later,
days later, they, yeah. So
they
what
don't have
do we,
nothing.
right? So we're going to put them out before they get a chance to achieve true sustainability and equity and economic advancement. We're going to cut them off with the sustainability that we said we're going to give them through the sustainable housing, but there's nothing that we can do to stop it. Again, I want to iterate these changes in programming. There's nothing per the state of Indiana that says that we have to pay rent to somebody for 12 months out of the year. Is there a program that we can build, and that there could be something contingent upon them being within a house for a couple of months out that year to kind of relieve the burden of every month rent until these people get it together? What assurities do they have, in place that's going to show that they're going to be able to keep the sustainable house that they did have until they see progress and growth within sustainable living? And those are some of the issues that I have with not only with just what he said, but with some of the information that's in the books and how it's been presented. Yeah, that's where I'm taking this. Like, so what's there? Is it really sustainable? Like, let's really think about this. Yeah, it is the minority of families going to jail and getting put out are minority families. But again, if they don't have the tools, and again, it's about the tools. And then again, people have been hurt so long under the system that we're under, even if you give them all the tools, will they change? Will they actually do what they need to do from the tools that you give them?
I was really interested in the book. The author talked about, like guaranteeing, housing as a human right, in the same way that we do a public education here, and just what that would look like and how that could potentially be successful. It was just really a compelling case. I thought it was also interesting that it seemed like the author was advocating for like expansion of the voucher program and saying that had been really successful. And I didn't have anything to compare it to. I don't really know about that compared to other solutions that are out there, but it made me definitely interested to learn more, see what other people, other cities had worked on or other solutions people had come up with.
Well, I'll say, I think, that in the context of addressing this, we have to think about what is, I guess you would say, needed in the now or intervention, and what is the long-term solution. And I too am interested in the conversation about housing as a public good and what that could look like. But in the interim, like Alvin said, we decided that in this country that you should make money out of real estate. And that's okay, but does it have to be housing for families? It could be, once you get to a point where you have more income and you want to upgrade or upscale or, get a more fancy or a bigger house or a condo or what kind of thing like that. But to me, we really need to think about what kind of systemic changes we need to make so that families and people, even if they got challenges with drugs and things like that, because to me, I feel like you can't just, and I've lived in apartment complexes. My dad bought a house. I now own property. So I've lived in all these different environments. I've lived in rental house that the landlord didn't keep it up. But to me, the question is, how can we make sure that families and everyone has housing and that it's quality, affordable housing? So to me, that means, okay, like when we talk about community land trust, that the value of the rent is not going to go up just because the landlord decides that the rent's going to go up and they can make more or they can gouge you for more, but that we have a stock of housing that's available to families and individuals, and there is a set rate in terms of what we charge for it, and then it may increase, as needed, but not to make people rich, and they can get rich off of other kinds of real estate, that kind of things. But in the interim, like saying pushing for more vouchers, but people say in DC, I guess you would say if we had more vouchers, there's like a 10-year wait on housing for that. And even if you live in public housing, I knew people who lived in public housing and I would visit them, it was just a horrendous environment. So to me, there are a lot of things that we have to look at in the context of if a family is going to have safe, affordable, quality housing and an individual. How do we get to that? What does that look like? How do we make sure that, you know, they can afford it and it's not more than 30% of their income? But also we got to address these other things, like they talked about in the book, how housing, the cost of housing kept going up, but people's wages weren't going up. So of course, at some point, their housing and utility costs is going to be more than their wages, because we're not paying people a living wage. So to me, it has to be, I guess you would say, concerted effort to, one, address the right now in the context of dealing with landlords who are not fixing up their properties or gouging people who feel like they can get away with it because we said you can make money off of real estate and people can't report you, and people won't report them because they don't have anywhere else to go. So how do we increase the housing stock? How do we make it affordable? How do we hold landlords accountable? And then how do we get to a point where it's a systemic change and not that, you know, housing is where you make your money and you can, I guess, increase your income by raising the rent on people who cannot afford it. So there's no, to me, there's no housing regulation at all. You know, you can go into business and become a landlord and do whatever you want. And unless they feel like they can report you, you can get away with it.
Thank you, Ms. Fambana and Alicia and TJ. So I do want to point it to more of that question of, is there anything, what can we do about it?
So was the question, what can we do about it?
Yeah, so what? It's rough. What can we do ourselves, or even thoughts towards solutions? Might be many different kinds of solutions, or even reframing it, changing this situation.
My whole thing is, we all see that what's going on in the world today is from a lack of guidance. It's from a lack of stability. It's from a lack of people caring. So we see that there are, So we see that there are many reasons as to why things are being exacerbated the way that they are. And so my thing is, we have to create comprehensive programs that we can administer to make sure that they get the relief that they really need as far as being truly sustainable. If my puppy is just going crazy. So let me let him out real quick. Sorry, guys. Give me a quick second, real quick. Come on. Come on, she. Come on. Outside. Okay. Sorry about that. So again, just I want to iterate the thought that I had said when we were moving around. There is nothing in the state of that says through Indiana code that we have to pay rent for 12 months out of the year. Can we leverage that information? Why not put incentives in, such as people that provide furnaces, houses, doors, and put an incentive in for them to provide these services, so we can like take a few months off of rent? Like, what can we swap to swap? You see what I'm saying? We have to, everything that, how we got to where we are today was by people bartering, people coming together, giving a piece of what it is that they knew, a piece of what it is that their skill was. And these are innate or inherent talents, skills. We need to use the founding concepts that we used in the past to get to where we need to be now. So we understand that they're using all these laws against us. We need to find a way to use the laws to where they can govern us for true equity, true sustainability, true affordability. We have to use what we know. And again, I want to iterate, nothing, there's no code. Somebody has to take a hit. And if we're being a land trust, and if we have land that we can build on and we can put people into this housing, we already know that it comes along with programming. So why not is it that we can mandate 9 or 10 months of rent payment, but for these other 2 months, they have to do things to help bring equity back into the business, or, do something that's gonna, create some type of revenue, something that we can do checks and balances on to see if they're becoming sustainable. And that's my total thoughts. It takes a village, it takes a community to really truly help raise things. And I think we need to try to consider a few of these suggestions, because if the things that were happening that are governing us now was working, we would be in better shape. So something's off. We have to try, somebody's got to go low. Somebody's got to take a hit. And if that's the landlord taking off $1,600 per rent, but you're gaining XYZ as a double tax write-off for renting, we need to try to come up with those type of ideas. We also need to come up with ideas such as like lobbying, understanding that there are laws that kind of govern these type of programs, these concepts like the community land trust. These are what you consider social welfare commodities, programmings. These are things that need to stay here regardless to whatever happens. Like, let's just say HUD. We know HUD has been in existence for years, but if you take a look at HUD's record, they are really not, in my impression, my suggestion, they're not worth the weight that they are giving them. And that's because if you look at the data, they house more people overnight for homeless circumstances within using those fundings than they do putting people in housing for sustainable growth. There's a small percentage of people that are actually been housed that's really doing something, going somewhere. All the millions of dollars that's been given, but not a lot of people are receiving these services. So we have to my suggestions is to try different things, do not what we see other people do, but set outside the narrative. And that's to try to create programs that are better than the ones that are in existence. And I'm not going to try to bash anybody because I'm a researcher. I do a lot of data. I'm an economic developer, and I don't want to bash people, but the data is there for review about the services and how long, they've been in act and what's been going on with the service provided there. But being a social welfare program, you should already be able to allocate funding from the federal government. There's power in numbers. You get those numbers, then you're able to have people lobby to create these laws to say, hey, the community land trust needs sustainable funding for this sustainable, because this is 13,000 people that we're sheltering with programming. Like, this is the type of stuff that we need to really start talking about. These are just my suggestions, but I don't hear too many other people coming up with anything new other than what's already out there that's been sinking us into the hole, keeping people minority, the same thing. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
I agree. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. I agree with everything you just said, Alicia. I agree it takes a village, and that we should get the land in the hands of more, well, this is me talking now, but I agree we should get the land in the hands of like conscious owners. And then as like a village, we could build on that land together in community. And one way I thought that would be possible would be through like, well, I watched this YouTube video a long time ago. It was like, I was interested in natural building methods as a way to somehow own a home as a low-income person. And I thought I could build my own and save a lot of money and get sort of circumvent the whole system. And it like natural building methods do work, and I'm really confused as to why we're not using them. Yeah, like, but I watched this one video of a commune that they all used natural building methods such as like cob, which is basically building with dirt, like a mud mixture basically. And then those who built their homes, they own their homes, so to do with what they want. They don't own the land that the home is built on, but the land is in a community land trust essentially. So it's like bought and it's being treated responsibly, and it's not to be sold. So they're able to like, they have full autonomy over their homes, and they can sell them to a new owner but the people allowed into this commune are sort of vetted in a little bit of a way, like you have to qualify like in various ways. But I just thought that was a really good idea, and I just wanted to mention it.
Thanks, Josie, for sure. Yeah, I don't think I'll add, like, I definitely think like that just reminded me of when we went out and visited the Bay Area, a couple of folks from Kheprw. One of the groups that we met with was the Bay Area Community Land Trust, which focuses exclusively on starting housing cooperatives. And a lot of, particularly on the East and West coasts, a lot of focus is on building cooperatives, which is the idea of people basically banding together, not just everyone for themselves, to be able to afford housing, particularly like when you do like home ownership of a single family home, like people have to like qualify for a mortgage and meet all kinds of other circumstances, but through cooperatives, being able to collectively qualify for that kind of financing. I think it's definitely less common here, so there might be some challenges in figuring out, but there are some cooperatives, primarily more like apartment communities around here. Oh, and actually I will plug, there is going to be a housing co-ops conference. I think it's March 31st here in Indianapolis, and I'll find the link and I'll put it in the chat if any of y'all want to come. It's free and it's in person, and there's also going to be like an online option.
The other thing I wanted to add to that around, to me, the things that hopefully maybe the CLT can do here is, look into models to encourage housing cooperatives, but also intentional communities in the concept of, if you're doing new construction or rehabbing old construction, and how to help people own it, but also be a community. And there's like, we have a relationship, I think it's with Renewing Management, and they have a number of apartment complexes that they work with, and they try to create this atmosphere of community. And in the book, Matthew Desmond talked about the one lady, I think her name was Doreen, and how she had participated in a community when she got evicted, and she went to this other one she did. So to me, I think we really got to find ways to reconnect people with each other, whether it be through housing co-ops, apartment co-ops, intentional communities. And then while we're trying to work on doing those things and expand the availability of affordable housing, we need to also support those who are working to address the issues around eviction and bring forth policies that hold landlords responsible, and public housing responsible as well. So it's kind of like, a twofold, and I'm sure that's probably a third, because usually three is unity, but a three-prong approach to trying to get to the point where everybody has affordable quality housing, and what that could look like. So what can we offer, what's already existing? I mean, even, like talking with the city about, and I know city has land, but they don't have property. And so, but even accessing land and then either building homes on those lands. And they have a program right now that Alva can talk about, that they're trying to get developers to do that. Or even when apartment complexes get ready to sell, to help the people there buy their apartment complexes and become owners of it, and then create communities. So to me, looking at those, but then supporting those who are advocating for change in policy, advocating for more dollars, and advocating for more control and accountability from landlords.
Thanks, Ms. Pambana. And definitely, like, what stood out to me on that is the relationships. So really fundamentally, housing is an aspect of our economy and our way of life, but it's rooted in the culture and the economy and the way that we relate to each other. I think, like, traditionally like we talk about I think in older stories, like multi-generational like families that used to like live together and support each other too. And I think that there's a lot of value in that kind of community. But I think since the like post World War II, where it was every person single family home was promoted in order to sell houses, and also a sort of lifestyle, a consumer lifestyle, so that everyone has their own washing machine and everyone has their like 2 cars, and it's I guess a good way of creating a manufacturing economy. But I don't know, I guess at a certain point it's like, can it be sustained, and what's the cost of that in terms of our connection with each other, and in some ways our ability to have affordable housing too.
You hit a very, very deep point, Alvin. Like, that is just so surreal. It's so Pastor Mormon is saying something in the background real quick.
What you're saying, I totally agree. I've said that for many years. And so people have to understand something. It's about, also, I was wanting to talk about what the other lady was talking about as far as even apartments, is that if a landlord, because you have sometimes people have their apartments or homes or what have you, but the apartments is that they've had people in them, but they'll sell the apartment off underneath the people to someone else. But the people that's been there for years, sometimes some people get to stay, but sometimes when they do the transitioning, they like, okay, well, your lease is going to be up. So there's a lot of times there's no renewal or what have you, because they want to turn around and get the people out. And the people turn around, even if they've been there 8, 10 years, 15 years, they have to actually have to uproot instead of having that opportunity to purchase that apartment. It has to be what can we do to turn around and change the mindset of how sometimes their lifestyle and home is actually ripped off and underneath them, because even if they go back, the whole point is getting them out so that they could turn around and boost the rent up. Years ago, before becoming a homeowner, stuff like that, I was renting an apartment. Just shortly, I turned around and the apartment went up because I didn't know. My dad said you should never fix up anybody's property, but I went in there, I painted, I turned around and put flooring in, put the carpet in and stuff like that and everything like that, and changed everything around. And guess what? Because what I was paying a month, it was a really good deal. But guess what? She like, oh, my family needs to get this a place. But what she did, she actually got me out and I had to move. She turned around and she raised the rent up $110. And from what I was paying, because the place, I fixed it up. And my dad said, you should never, ever fix up a renter's place, because that's what she did. She moved me out because it wouldn't be fair for her to raise my rent up $110. But she knew that she can get, by showing the place to somebody else, she can get that from them right off the bat. So we need laws to turn around to protect renters from such things as those things happening. But this is real.
It is happening every day.
It's real.
Yeah, and the other part of what we need laws is that the Indianapolis keeps trying to, maybe somebody said this, I had to step away, talk to the police, take a report, but Indianapolis has tried to have ordinances that protect renters, and the state goes in and says you can't do that. So we have to have laws that, I don't know, that don't hobble.
That aren't laws.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Don't hobble local control.
Yeah.
And then also it comes to, like you said, education and being informed. Information is very powerful. Some people don't even know their rights as a tenant, as well as, being a landlord. And so it goes both ways. And sometimes some people are like, okay, so now they're scared. They don't know where they're going. They don't know where they're moving to, because they don't really have either the proper credit or what have you. And they know they just been, they found a place to stay. So now things could be snatched up from underneath them at a glance, because basically, if you're not an owner of anything, you don't have anything. And so you could be a renter of a house. And if that landlord sells that house, that they said, well, you got 2 weeks or 30 days or whatever, and you got to move, because you want that, new owners want that property,
Yeah, for sure. And on the policy side, I'll just mention these things, and we are coming up at 6:04. So I think we'll move to any final thoughts or closing statements or questions for people. But there's a couple different kinds of legislations that have been done. So one is good cause eviction, that is in a couple states been, I think a couple have it or are pushing for it at least. And it's basically the idea that you can't evict a tenant for no cause. Like you can't just decide to not renew their lease. It limits the amount rent can increase. year over year, because that's essentially a way to evict people, is by raising their rent. And just basically a lot of protections more for tenants, or rebalancing that relationship between tenants and landlords. There's also tenant opportunity to purchase, or community opportunity to purchase, which they have, and particularly in Washington, D.C. is probably the most famous for it. And that basically they've had it since like the 70s. And if someone's going to sell a property, that the tenant has the first right of refusal, first opportunity to purchase it, for like a certain time period before it can go on the open market. Not that the landlord has to accept that offer, but they do have to entertain the offer from the tenant. And if they sell it to someone else, the tenant gets an opportunity to match it. The alternative to that is community opportunity to purchase, which gives nonprofits or community organizations that same right to purchase instead of selling it on the open market first. So I will open it up for any. Oh, one other thing is right to counsel. This is another policy that I think within Indianapolis has been experimented with, like a pilot for how to provide legal help. But there are other really like states that are doing it more fully. I'm trying to remember the group that we talked to before. Ms. Philadelphia also has an eviction diversion program that's required, so that landlords and tenants have to try and mediate a solution before it like goes into an eviction. So I'll open it up for any final thoughts.
Awesome class today, or community collaboration, because it's been really, these are things that we need to do our best to get enforced here in Indiana, not just in Washington, but that means that they can be here. So that means if another state is doing something that is working, that means that it can be implemented here. And we just about getting the people together and lobbying, getting it on the docket.
Thank you, Pastor Mormon.
I just wanted to say that I thought that my favorite quote in the book was "The rent eats first."
Not the rent eats first. That's the favorite quote in the book.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Yeah.
That's
I
deep.
mean, it's always been the case,
And for me, I just feel like if we can start a fund, if there's any way that we can make it so compelling to people that we should get involved, and make it so simple, but make it so compelling as to why, I feel like the flood of community will come back. We are experiencing a systematic individualization degradation. That's a lie. It's been systematically done to each and every one of us to break us down, to deplete us. And that's without color. Say it again.
That's without color.
It's without color. At this point, you can actually really see that color was never even really an issue. It was always them trying to keep us separate to start arguing amongst one another. When truth to be told is we all have innate gifts that if we use them, we can elevate each other to the best of our ability. And I totally believe that we have to figure out that puzzle. 2 jobs is for 2 people.
2 jobs is for 2 people.
What she just said.
If somebody get a job, they should be able to sustain their home.
What she just said.
Cost of living should be affordable. If you live in a home, you shouldn't have to have 2 jobs.
That's right.
Whereas you got executive that have to make it on one job, or either show up if they don't show up. So the thing about it is, you have a home, you have a family. You have to turn around, some children kind of been left home and been taken away, because so their whole home life is interrupted. It's because they turn around and children are taken away because the parent has to turn around and work 2 jobs or a job and a half and stuff like that to sustain the home, but yet can't afford the child care, because the child care is even more than the mortgage.
It's the hamster wheel. You said it earlier. It's the hamster wheel. And guess what? And by us being all individuals, we're doing exactly by what Alvin said. We're all trying to attain to keep that 2 car, to pay that mortgage, to live the little lifestyle that we created. But guess what? While systems that have been established that everybody's maintaining, they're being broken down right in front of you. So sooner or later, it's going to come to that point to where you're not going to have what you're going to have. You're going to be compromised as well. So in my thing, is there any, in my thought processes, can we form a fund to where everybody just give $5? And you'll be surprised at what $5 do from everybody that learns the mission and really give $5. And if we can do it on a consistent basis to make it a pledge to not even eradicate, but help evolve stability, close the housing gap. If we can just all pledge to do that, and we cycle these missions or these thought processes to other people, I would say within 6 months, this should be like a cancer web, and we got $5 coming in from everybody, that everybody's just supporting the effort. Therefore, you don't have to rely on begging money from the federal government or creating, going after all these long, tedious grant processes or waiting for your money to accumulate in some type of brokerage or investment wealth account. If you don't know what those are, you better look at those too. But anyways,
Obama did with $5 and $10 pledges and stuff like that.
$5 and $10 pledges.
And didn't take any money from
None.
You did
None.
on his campaign just off of $5 and $10 pledges that people gave all around.
All around the world,
$5
pledges. It can be done, but how bad do we want it? How bad are people willing to understand the dire necessity? I think we need to make data more comprehensible, take away the verbiage, and just everybody's into this 3 to 5 seconds on YouTube, on Instagram, and that's all their brains can handle. So they start getting bored as soon as you start really talking about the nooks and the crannies. The introduction gets in there. Oh, I'm so-and-so, I'm from doing such and such. But when the nooks and crannies start being revealed, they lose the interest. They're there physically, but spiritually, innately, they're not there anymore. And so therefore, everything that they learned goes out the door once the screen is off. So we have to figure out a comprehensive way to bring community back as community and take away. There's a few people, no, don't get me wrong. There's gonna be some people out here that's gonna be hell-bent on being an individual. Stay out here and be an individual, because you're gonna learn, like everybody else, that nothing was ever achieved in this world alone. And that is the truth. There is nothing that's on a great scale that was ever achieved alone. And it took us a long time to get where we are. Many years, hundreds, it took a long time. So it's gonna take some digging and some consistency, persistency to get us out of this. And I'm gonna just say it, the cohesive minds, just like Josie said, that's how this is gonna be done. People who think a lot, who see the narrative, the visionaries, people who are trying to implement what they're doing. You might have a business and don't think that it's worth anything, but guess what? That business is the key to elevating everything to make that ecosystem work. Community Land Trust is building an ecosystem. That's what's happening here. And if we can find a way to present that ecosystem that's friendly, like for one thing that we did for our corporation real quick is we bought what you call a doodly system. It's a marketing system. And so you know how you see cartoons and stuff on TV now, colorful and all that? We got it to where we can just explain the mental health side of our corporation through Doodly. And then we upload that as part of our marketing. So people who are relating to the experiences that are going on are able to view that Doodly and reach out to us to get more invited, to ask, to get the wheels turning again in their head to say, hey, can I use this? How can I use this? This is me. This happened to me. They can help. You see what I'm saying? Building these ecosystems. We have to think outside the box. We're visionaries. This is what we're doing. There is nothing that is so big, it's not comprehensive. Yet again, there's nothing so small that we can't adjust to make it fit what we need.
Amen. Thanks, Alicia. Jeanette, I saw you unmute. Did you want to say any final words too?
No, I was really just agreeing with what she was saying, and that it's not just Black people, but I think one of the keys that we need to think about when we talk about advocacies, especially at the state level, is we have to make it relatable to the poor rural people so they could try to get their elected officials accountable. I think most of the indie elected, not all, but most of the indie officials are already understand it. But like she said, that the system was set up to get poor whites fighting the Blacks and spend all their time doing that and let the rich people keep getting richer.
Thanks, Jeanette.
And
Well-
create these laws that are harming us, Jeanette. You're right.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us tonight. I do want to just do a quick plug for the next book for next month, which is The Death and Life of Great American Cities by Jane Jacobs. It tends to be a dense book, but I think even if you can read the first couple, like the introduction and the first few chapters, I think it starts to hit on some of the mythology of how we develop our cities. So we hope you can join us then, and thank you for coming tonight. Appreciate y'all.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, nice to meet you,
Bye,
TJ.
everyone.
Hope to see you next time.
All right, see y'all.
Thank you, Alvin. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Nate. Catch y'all later. Bye, Alicia. See you, Jeanette.